This year, we will be reading many different genres of writing. It is important to know these different types of writing and their function. Here are the 5 main genres of writing. First, we have nonfiction, which is writing that is true. Next, fiction, which is imaginative or made-up writing. Now we have folklore. Those are stories once passed down orally and now finally written down. Then we have drama, which are plays or a script. And finally, poetry, which is writing concerned with the beauty of language. Let's now talk about the nonfiction genre and its many different subgenres. The first one is persuasive writing. This is writing that tries to influence the reader. Next is informational writing. This is writing that explains and informs with facts and detailed information. The next one we have is an autobiography. This is a life story written by oneself, the author. Next we have biography, which is when the author writes about someone else's life. Essays are another nonfiction subgenre. These are short informational pieces focused on one topic. Now we'll get into the fiction genre and its subgenres. The first we have is historical fiction. This is a story that is set in the past and based on real people or events, but have made up elements. For example, in the novel Titanic Crossing, the Titanic actually was a real ship that sank. However, the characters in this story and the events are completely made up. Now we have science fiction. Science fiction has aliens, robots, futuristic technology, and/or spaceships. This subgenre often includes dystopian fiction, such as the Divergent series. Realistic fiction is a subgenre of fiction that has no elements of fantasy. The story could be true, but it isn't. Next, we have the fantasy subgenre. Fantasy has monsters, magic, or characters with superpowers. For example, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief includes almost all of these details. Our next genre is folklore. We'll now look at the subgenres of folklore. Did you know that folklore started as an oral tradition with stories passed down from one generation to the next? Our first folklore subgenre are folk tales. These usually have an unknown author and will often be retold or adapted by a new author and written down. A fable is a short story with personified animals and a moral, such as Aesop's fables. Personified means giving the traits of humans, and a moral is a lesson or message of the fable. For example, slow and steady wins the race. Myths are stories that have gods and goddesses and usually account for the creation of something. For example, the myth of Hades and Persephone details the tradition of our 4 seasons. Tall tales are set in the Wild West or the American frontier. The main character's size, skills, and strength is greatly exaggerated, and the exaggeration is usually humorous. Legends are based on a real person or place. However, the facts are stretched beyond nonfiction and exaggerated in a serious way. Fairy tales have magic and/or talking animals. Often they start with once upon a time, and they often have a human as a main character. Disney is king with fairy tales. Our next genre is the drama genre. There are two types of drama. The first one is comedy, which is a play or a story that usually has a happy ending. And the next one is a tragedy, which usually ends in sadness or death. Our final genre is poetry, and it's many different sub-genres. Because there are so many different types of poetry, we're going to save those for another time.